The July 25th, 2022 meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Committee will now come to order. Everybody bear with me, my eyesight isn't the best here. Welcome to the Monroe County Planning and Economic Development Committee public hearing to approve and adopt proposed additions to the Monroe County agricultural districts. Public hearing is being held to give the public the opportunity to comment on one, the proposed additions to the districts, and two, the recommendations of the Monroe County Agricultural and Farmland Protective Board. I hope you have signed in at the clerk's office. If not, please do so.
Call the roll.
Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Alcoffer? Here. Mr. Alcoffer is present. Mr. Baines? Here. Taylor?
Here.
Taylor is present.
Okay, the July 22nd, 2020 public hearing before the Monroe County Planning and Economic Development Committee will now come to order. The public hearing is part of the regular Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting. Article 25AA of the New York State Agricultural and Markets Law allows the county legislature to create agricultural districts. The law then requires the legislature to review each of the districts 8 years after its creation and every 8 years thereafter to see if it has achieved its intended purpose, which is to help conserve and encourage the use of agricultural land for the production of agricultural products. In 2002 and in 2003, the New York State Legislature adopted changes to the Agricultural and Markets Law that enables property owners to petition for adding lands to an established agricultural district at a time designated by the county legislature. Previous to this change, property owners wishing to add lands to the agricultural district had to wait until the established 8 years anniversary date to petition the county legislature for action. A public hearing must be held prior to the legislature voting to add parcels to the agricultural district. The purpose of the public hearing is to give the public the opportunity to comment on the proposed additions.
A mailing regarding this public hearing was sent to the supervisor, clerk, and landowners of the affected town and the Commission of Agriculture and Markets on July 15th, 2020. Affidavit of publication and posting of hearing notice in the Daily Record and Rochester Business Journal on July 22nd, 2021 has been received and is on file in the clerk's office.
Following the public hearing, the Planning and Economic Development Committee will take action and make recommendations to the Monroe County Legislature for action at its next meeting. Which is scheduled for 6 p.m. Tuesday, August 9th at 2022. We will now hear public comments regarding the proposed additions to the agricultural districts from the audience. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the committee on this subject? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. As stated previously, the Planning and Economic Development Committee will take action on this matter, and it will come before the legislature at the August 9th, 2022 meeting. Following its adoption, a report and revised district map will be submitted to the New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets. Is there anyone signed up for public forum tonight?
There is not.
Is there anyone present that has not signed up to speak that would like to address the committee at this time? Being none, the next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. You have the June 27th, 2022 minutes before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of today. The next item on the agenda is new business. Mr. Clerk.
22-0203, authorize additions to Monroe County agricultural districts.
Second by legislator. Okay, is there any discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes. Next item.
22-0226, amend the 2022 to 2027 capital improvement program and the 2022 capital budget to add a project entitled Multi-Modal Freight Initiative Planning Project and authorize financing for the project.
Moved by legislator Alcalter, seconded by legislator Baines. Is there any discussion? Go ahead, legislator.
This is a new project I'm not too familiar with, so can someone from the administration describe it a little more in greater detail than what was presented tonight?
Through you, Madam Chairwoman, this referral is requesting authorization to create a new capital project. By doing so, amend the 2022-2027 CIP for a project entitled the Multimodal Freight Initiative Planning Project, and authorize funding in the initial amount of $1 million. Again, it's a planning initiative to assess the regional benefits and opportunities for improved freight movement within Monroe County, primarily related to air, rail, and highway. Given that we have a unique combination of the location of our airport, CSX Railway, as well as Interstate 90, 390, and 490. We know that through prior studies, Monroe County is uniquely situated to improve the efficiency of freight movement within the area, given the proximity to that infrastructure. And we also know too, through supply chain challenges that we're all experiencing firsthand as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as other international conflicts. It's really exacerbated, a fragile supply chain. So things have changed dramatically over the last few years, particularly with the advent, of Amazon and other types of freight distribution changes that we've become accustomed to. That it appears to be very worthwhile to evaluate the benefit both from a job creation standpoint as well as an economic growth standpoint here in our community to improve freight movement, both air, rail, and highway. So the initial step to do that is to conduct a marketing and economic assessment to determine if indeed improving that infrastructure, integrating that infrastructure would provide the efficiencies that we believe would occur. Again, prior studies have taken place both at the state level and local level, and have indicated that the benefits would inure to the county if we were to pursue a project of that scale. We also know that the federal government's making available nearly $12.5 billion of infrastructure money for multimodal projects around the country. Those federal dollars, those construction grant dollars, are available in fiscal year 2022 through 2026. So the county really needs to get its planning efforts in place before it pursues construction grants. Typically, these federal programs don't fund studies. So the initial step would be to determine, is this economically viable? Would this concept be economically viable? And if it is, the county then would come back to the legislature and ask for additional funding for other types of infrastructure and engineering assessments to really determine and scope out what the project would entail. We would do the environmental reviews as well, and really position the county for a competitive grant application at the federal level for those construction dollars. But again, we expect a project of this scale would be in the tens of millions of dollars. It would be a very substantial capital endeavor.
Through the chair, I'm trying to understand what you're saying. Are these three modems going to be working separately, or are they going to be interconnected for the transportation?
Through you, Madam Chairwoman, that's a good question. They would be integrated, and their physical proximity is important, right? In other words, the airport in its relative location to 390, in the thruway, as well as railroad yards that could bring in, different modes of transportation of this freight, whether it's freight coming into Monroe County or local industry that's produced freight that needs to be shipped out. So there's the opportunity to really transfer freight in an approximate location, whether it's from rail to airport or freight movement here locally. The intent is to integrate those and make them more efficient. And it would be a facility like this would be operated under one type of authority or administration. Likely wouldn't be a county department, and that would be part of the study to really evaluate how a facility like this would be operated. And we've seen other examples of what they call inland ports. These aren't, marine ports in major cities. They're inland ports within the United States that are assisting in freight movement, because the marine ports in large coastal cities are effectively getting significantly burdened with being able to manage that freight. They want to get it out of those locations as quickly as possible into what they call inland ports that could be then distributed elsewhere in the country. So we think the benefit, and we know there's a need for food grade storage, high quality paper grade storage as well here in the county, for materials that are produced in the county that need to be shipped out. So it would be a benefit to the local industries as well.
Through the chair, would you be using facilities already developed within Monroe County, or would you have to develop new facilities to acclimate this?
Through Madam Chairwoman, it would be a combination of both. We'd rely heavily on the existing airport, the interstates, and the railways that go through the county. But it certainly would require a centralized facility to bring that all together. So it would be a substantial capital improvement. We would expect it would be a very substantial capital improvement that would be required in and around, we expect, again, the study will evaluate this, likely around somewhere proximate to the airport. It may even involve extending the runway of the airport to bring in different types of aircraft for freight movement.
Through the chair, would this project be available for additional funding, like state or federal, or through ARPA, something like that?
Through you, Madam Chairwoman, it would be not eligible for ARPA funding. However, there are two distinct federal programs that have a total of about $12.5 billion of infrastructure funding for multimodal facilities in the country, because they know there's a huge need. The federal government's aware, this primarily the US DOT is aware there's a tremendous need to expand inland ports and marine ports as well for freight movement. And the dynamics changed dramatically as a result, of COVID and the supply chain issues that have occurred.
Through the chair or through the administration, are you prepared to begin next year, or is it something further out with this timeline?
Through you, Madam Chairwoman, this phase, the economic and marketing assessment, we would advance that and expect to have it complete in the fourth quarter of 2023. If we determine at that time that a project like this appears viable, we would come back to the administration, ask for additional funding to complete the plan, and prepare grant applications for the federal program. Because, as I mentioned, there's a 4-year window to be able to take advantage of the federal construction grants. So we really want to advance this quickly and expeditiously and position the county competitively if we determine that it's a really viable project for the community.
Through the administration, I just want to personally thank Mr. Garland for breaking this down and educating me. And again, thank him for what he's done for Monroe County. He's just a great resource in Monroe County, and I thank you, Mr. Garland.
Madam Chairman, thanks. Legislator Alcoffer.
That's it, Madam Chair.
Yes, Legislator Baines?
Idea that is driving this. What kind of pre-planning have we done gaming out our chances even before we spend $1 million? For instance, through do we have a feel for who some of our competitors might be, or what the landscape looks like for our likelihood of success in securing this funding?
Through you, Madam Chairwoman, there have been a number of studies that have taken place over the last 2 decades and some more recently. The New York State Freight Transportation Plan that was completed in 2019, the New York, New Jersey Port Master Plan, 2050, as well as the transportation strategies for freight and goods movement in the Genesee Finger Lakes region that was completed in 2012, and then farther back, the Global Multimodal Industry Study that was done in 2002. The studies all point to an opportunity here in Monroe County that we are uniquely positioned to be able to take advantage of a more centralized, integrated multimodal facility. Each one point to the area, and particularly the airport, projecting significant goods movement through the airport. By 2040, they're expecting 45,000 tons moved, that I should say were handled in 2012, 45,000, projecting that we'll be handling upwards of 113,000 by 2040. They see the growth in optics and photonics, as well as food processing and food manufacturers here in the community, the need for transload facilities. Even the New York and New Jersey Port Master Plan identifies the need for inland port facilities to relieve the burden in the New York and New Jersey area in connection to inland rail ports.
Madam Chairman, I understand that and I appreciate that, but there's 2 concepts that I want to drill down on. The second one you just brought forward. The first is, how competitive will we be? And you said we're uniquely positioned, and you described discrete, specific elements of our circumstance, with which I wholeheartedly agree. We are, however, we have no northern terminus to our transportation because we're on the belly of the lake. We're between Buffalo and Syracuse. So as much as I see our assets, what I'm asking is, if we're uniquely positioned, how are we going to win the money when we're competing against communities from all over the United States of America? We have to win the argument to win the money, is my point. And have we taken a look at that, or will that be part of the study I think when we study the issue, we're going to find out that it'll be great. It'll be wonderful to build this facility. But are we going to win the money? And that's what I'm getting at. Has there been any analysis done along those lines? Have we hired consultants to analyze that? Spending $1 million to study something, and what I'm getting at is, what are the chances of those dollars paying off in the long run?
Through you, Madam Chairwoman, we have engaged Bergman Associates through our engineering term consultant contract to assist us in evaluating the potential. Indications thus far is that it is worth us advancing this level of marketing and economic assessment because Rochester is uniquely positioned. We know there are other regional studies that are going on right now. They're going to pursue those capital dollars, whether it's Vermont, state of Washington, Wisconsin, Oregon, Michigan, and Minnesota, as well as PennDOT. Rochester is unique in that we're located within what's known as the Great Navigation Circle for air traffic, where goods can move from Europe over the North Pole and into our airport. It is considered a distinct advantage of our airport location. Again, we've got a Class 1 rail line going through Monroe County, and we also have the I-90 interstate. So those are three unique advantages for Monroe County that our consultant has identified as really increasing the potential for a competitive application.
Through you, Madam Chairwoman, to what extent will the dollars be appropriated on amount of political leverage of the senators and Congress people in the respective communities that are applying for the money?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm not sure. I think to Mr. Garland's point, we've identified this as a need. The need for a multimodal facility is something that has been talked about for at least 20 years. I don't know that there's really ever been a thorough, detailed analysis of the need for that. Clearly, we're in competition with some of our neighbors who are further ahead of us in terms of their transit and shipping facilities. Theoretically, we're quite confident that the study will show that there's a viable project here, and the study is going to help scope it out for us what it would be. I guess there's also a very slim possibility that they might come back and say it's really not a viable project. Again, we're very comfortable that there is a viable project here and something that makes sense. And right now, and again, in an overall philosophical approach of how we look at things, without a study and without a plan, there's really no roadmap to be competitive to get these grants or to get these dollars. And I think, if you look back over time, we've had more of a priority. The Department of Planning and Economic Development, I think historically has focused much heavier on economic development, which for good reason, right? Jobs in the economy are a priority. We've maintained that focus on that, but we've also enhanced the planning aspect of planning. And this study is just a reflection of that. And again, if we're going to go ahead, and even if we aren't successful, and again, in a previous committee, the questions were asked about, well, what happens if the federal dollars are all gone and, you're out of luck with that? Well, I think at the end of the day, we're going to have, and again, I don't think there will be necessarily one singular project that comes out of this. There could be multiple projects that come out of this in different scale and scope. As Mr. Garland said, it could be tens of millions of dollars, but it doesn't necessarily have to be one massive project that's tens of millions of dollars. It also doesn't have to be one project that is solely funded by government with government dollars. And again, we're going through the study, but there could be opportunities for public-private partnerships. There could be private development that this helps spur. And again, we're looking at this to help identify projects, identify gaps in our system, and just make our region more competitive. And I would think at the very least, if you look at I'm not sure how it's defined, but the 7 or 9 county region that Monroe County is the population base for. There's a lot of goods and services there that could be directed and flow through here that will help from an economic development standpoint as we move forward.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Through you, one final question. Fair to say that Buffalo would be our primary competitor?
Okay. Through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, you really, each community is different, and each community sort of carves out its own space. If you look at, I know Oswego, I believe they have a facility there that is water-based, obviously, because of their location right on Lake Ontario. If you look at Syracuse, it's a rail and truck facility. They don't necessarily have the airport connection. Part of what we have, and again, not that any of this is predetermined, but you have a rail yard that is right next to our airport, and our airport holds tens of acres of vacant property that is potential warehouse space there. If you look at Buffalo, they have a water facility, but it's not necessarily well suited for some of the other facilities. So I think it's a competition. We sort of have to carve out our own niche based on our resources, and that's something that really hasn't been done here. And again, to Mr. Garland's point, as we were looking at this, I believe it was Cincinnati. Their airport in Cincinnati has a tremendous. That's the inland port that he was talking about in terms of the amount of freight that has moved in through there. And again, not that we're promising results like that, but that might help identify something where there's a gap in the system that we might be able to fill.
Through you, Madam Chairman, I appreciate spend $1 million on a study. It's a good idea to spend a little time talking about it in advance. So I appreciate
Yes.
I have one question to administer through you. So how did you come up with $1 million versus 500,000 versus 700?
Yes, through you, Madam Chairwoman, through our work with Bergman Associates and understanding the elements that would comprise a plan that would be suitable for a grant application. Again, we identified the first 2 steps would be the economic assessment and a marketing assessment. And there, we relied on their technical expertise to be able to scope out the level of effort that would be required. And their conclusion was we should budget $1 million for those 2 assessments.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The item carries. Are there any other matters to come before the committee? Okay, being no other matters, the July 25th, 2022 meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Committee will be held on Monday, August 22nd, 2022 at 5:45 p.m. Thank you.